Welcome to the Australian Business Executive Podcast, where we speak with Australia's most influential industry professionals on the business and economic development issues taking place across the country. You can stay up to date with all our content, including our magazines, podcasts and videos by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.
John and Gerard Higgins are both veterans of the painting industry, having grown up in the family business Higgins Coatings. With 70 years' experience in the industry between them, they've seen Higgins grow from humble beginnings to becoming one of Australia's largest commercial painting contractors. Whilst both have enjoyed success in other business and philanthropic ventures, Higgins remains their first passion. They've each held various roles across sales, operations, and management throughout the years, and as the business celebrates turning 70 years, John holds the position of chairman and Gerard as managing director. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, the most pertinent question is, what does Higgins Coatings do?
I guess the simple answer to that is we paint. We paint lots of buildings. We would be Australia's largest commercial painting provider or contractor. We have 20 branches across the country in all states of Australia. We work on about 4,000 projects a year. That's about 350 projects a month, ranging from painting a door to painting a 100-storey building. And we put on about 1 million litres of paint a year across those various projects.
And so who would be your clients? Are they industry specific? Do you just want to talk about some of the areas that you work within?
Look, there's a couple of different parts to our business. We have repaint and maintenance, and generally our customer there would be anyone from a body corporate strata, education. We do a lot of schools, universities, hospitals, retail, aged care, retirement living. Then separately we have a new construction division where we paint the high-rise buildings that are being constructed by the builders. We also do building services as well, where a client might have a major painting project that they want carried out, but they also have some other works that might need to be done, whether it's carpentry, plumbing, or electrical work. So we do that as well. And then the last area of our business is what we call national accounts, where we work for clients that have multiple sites. That could be anywhere from a petrol station through to a large retailer. To the likes of a Dulux that might have 100 sites around the country, or a Bunnings that might have a couple of 100 sites around the country.
Interesting. So for companies that do this then, is that considered a marketing spend? Because obviously that's the appeal of their business, or do they typically have a time frame of when they're looking to repaint their assets?
It's quite ad hoc. We try to get a lot of customers thinking that they need to do periodical maintenance on their buildings. It's a bit like a car. If you wash it weekly, it looks good. If you wash a building yearly, it looks good, but if you don't, it starts to deteriorate over time. But generally, people are quite ad hoc with how they go about their painting needs and don't really think about it until it's too late. So we've got a real education process in place there, trying to educate our customers how often we should be there doing work for them.
Well, you have made it to 70 years in business now, so do you want to just explain a little bit about your company origins and where you see yourself today?
Well, you're right. This is our 70th year in business, and the business was formed by our father, or actually both parents, Jerry and Peggy Higgins. But Dad, he was the painter. So he was born in 1924 in a little town called Cultramar in Ireland. He left home at quite a poor family. We're talking about a thatched cottage they'd lived in for a couple of 100 years. So really basic existence. He left home at 16 to move to the UK to work, because you had to leave to actually go away to earn money to send it back home to his mother. His father had already left. He was working in the UK as well. After a number of years, he returned home because his father wasn't well. And then he made a decision that he would migrate. He had 2 sisters and a brother in New York, 1 sister and 2 brothers in London. So they were the options. But he decided it was time that he wanted to go somewhere on his own. And he'd read a lot about Australia. So he made the decision at about 24 to move to Australia. So he came out as the 10-pound migrant, obviously on a ship, and sailed into the Melbourne harbour. And that was in 1949 when he arrived. And the interesting thing at the time was that all migrants were given one night in the exhibition buildings. So they basically gave you a sack, pointed to a pile of straw, said you can make your own bed. So you slept there that first night. He didn't think it was the best way to actually treat people when they first arrived in the country. And then the second day they talked about where there was opportunity to work, and they said you can go to Mount Beauty as a painter and start working. So he did head up there, and again, the next day, the same thing, they gave him a sack and straw. He suggested that he knew how to treat people a little bit better than that. If they gave them mattress, they would actually sleep better and work better. So the important thing about that is that was really the foundations of Dad, that he was quite driven, knew what he wanted, and he always said he knew how to treat people to get the best out of them. So from there, he came back to Melbourne after a period of time and really just started painting on his own. He was painting a house in Brunswick for our grandfather, as it turned out, and he saw this young lady who was at the home, and he decided to invite her out. So I think they were married a year later, and me being the oldest, I was born a year later, so that was really the start of an amazing partnership. Dad and Mum are still both well. Dad's 95, Mum's 87. An amazing relationship. He ran really the projects and the sales, etc., and Mum ran the office, so they were a great team. I don't think either Gerard or myself actually have all the skills of our parents because they were seriously good at what they did. So the business really grew from that foundation, employing a lot of people over a period of time. Lots of family people have worked for us. Currently we have one supervisor in particular, Derek, who may have been with us 30 years. He has one son with us has been 15 years, another son about 7 years. And that's common. We've got a lot of people who have been with us 30, 40, 45 years. So there's a great foundation of longevity, and I think family has been an important part of it.
Excellent. How do you feel the business has changed and expanded its offering over the years?
Well, I think that Dad's offering from the beginning was really all about the quality of the service. And he really said that I will, give me your money, I will spend it better than you can. I'll give you back a product, and I'll also, if I can save you money on the way, I will. But my aim will be that there's no fuss. So I think that's been the foundation. I think fundamentally the principles are the same today. Obviously, what's happened is with a lot more branches, a lot more people, we've had to put a lot more time into developing and training people, which is a critical component of what we do today. Over the years, we've had many in our new construction division, many of our senior people and or foremen have started as apprentices. So a lot of them have been with us sort of 40 years. So they've had their whole life in business has been with us. So I think the principles from where we started have been the same, but now we're a much more sophisticated, systemised business, which you fundamentally need to be.
Okay.
It was interesting just a couple of months ago now, we had a function for one of our employees who'd been with us 40 years. I think we had 20 people in the room, and we had 650 years of experience that people have worked at Higgins just in that room amongst those 20 people. So, there's a lot of long-termers.
Excellent. So, I mean, is that one of the defining characteristics is the experience of your staff when you look at other competitors who work in this space?
Look, that's absolutely true. I think one of the problems today, the apprenticeship is a dying art, unfortunately. A number of kids these days do it for a year, and I think they've become an expert in the game. So there are more and more brush hands and less trade qualified painters. So that's a concern for the future of the industry, at least anyway.
What would people be surprised to know is involved within commercial painting?
How you go about doing jobs. A lot of the external work we do, any day we would have 300 to 400 people working off access equipment, cherry pickers, ropes, swing stages, and you've got to really love doing that sort of work. You're hanging off buildings in all sorts of weather conditions. There's a lot around safety with how we go about doing things. We'd have probably 100 abseilers hanging off ropes on the outside of buildings, trying to access them. Unfortunately, architects don't spend a lot of time thinking about how people are going to access buildings after they've been built. So it's always
We hear the same from a lot of the construction companies that we speak to about the difference between architectural drawings and what's required in practice from them.
Absolutely. I think the other important thing is we paint everything from prisons through to hospitals, through to schools, and schools you've got to have working with children licenses. Obviously, prisons are slightly different to that again, but these are all operating ventures. So it's every job has its own unique areas of issues.
But I think you mentioned it, Gerard. One of the critical things today is obviously safety. We've always been totally focused on safety, and I think in the past our attitude was that we wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that they wouldn't actually ask somebody else to do. And I think, but now it's so documented and structured. It's we have safety officers all over the country who, number one, is actually we want to make sure everybody returns home safely, because we understand completely that everybody has families, children, parents. So it's really an important part, and it's something we really do try to live.
Are any of these factors, like for your clients, when they make a decision on Higgins Coatings as their commercial painter, do they factor in these decisions within their process?
I think part of one of the things we've spent a lot of time doing is trying to educate our customers how much money there might be involved in a quote that relates to safety. Gone are the days where people could use extension ladders and the likes of that. So it's important for us to actually nominate in our quotations what we believe the safety value is in a project that we might be tendering, and that starts to get the customer to think a bit different about who we're quoting against and have they allowed for what we've allowed for, and that's important these days. Very important these days. They are getting better at understanding it. There's no doubt about that, because there is a huge reliance on them as well to make sure that they create a safe working environment as well.
One of the components of that is that we actually, in our logo or our brand, we actually state that Higgins Better Painting Management. So what we clearly said from the beginning, we want to state up front what it is we do. We believe that it's pretty easy to find somebody who actually has the painting skills, but a critical component of what we do is actually the whole management of the project to ensure that actually we do everything from being safe up to a quality project, etc. But we also, as part of that, we say that we'll do whatever it takes. And that is obviously within the safe environment. It's to really look after the customer. Because in the end, that's what we want as a relationship, because we actually can do a quality project and at minimum for us, we know that you'll stay with us, and that's what we want, long-term relationships.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I guess one of the frustrations with our industry is everybody is a painter one day in their life. Everybody will pick up a brush and roller and do some painting at home, so everybody believes they're an expert at it. So it's a very cheap level of entry to get into our game, and therefore you do get a few cowboys along the way.
That's interesting. I'll ask you guys about that. I mean, what are some of the other factors? Obviously, I'm not a painter myself, but you hear about the quality, outdoor and UV protection. I know a lot of end paint brands offer warranty. What sort of comes down to that when you're talking with a client during that process?
Oh, look, it's about giving something that's going to last. It's about quality, it's about safety, but it's also knowing that if you're going to put a 10-year guarantee on something, that it's worthless if you're not planning on being around in 10 years' time. So that's where I guess we've got some longevity there, so that always helps.
I think a critical component about it is we talk about being 70 years old as a business, but we actually added that recently in our client function, saying 70 years young, because we have a lot of young people in the business who are skilled, dedicated at all levels, from painters all the way through to management. So the foundation for our business in the future is enormous, because we want to grow to give these young people an opportunity to grow with us and really expand and develop the business. So it's a great place to be in.
I mean, when you talk about 70 years young, it's a good segue to ask, what sort of business lessons and philosophies have you guys picked up in your time and also from your father from running the business for so many years, and mother?
I think one of the critical things, as I mentioned earlier, was that people are everything. And that doesn't mean that Dad was tough but fair. He was he really, as a tradesman, he was good at what he did, but he really did respect people. And I think that's a critical component we've tried to bring right through our history in the business, is that really to care about people. And I think that the other part of it is that when you consider it, people, you spend a lot of time at work. So it's really important you enjoy what you do. So there'll be times when we know that somebody will be a bit off because they might have some other issues going on in their life. So a critical component is to understand that and be a bit flexible with people. Obviously, younger people today really want to live life today, and that actually, they probably don't wait as long as some people my age for the success to come. But it's just, you need to understand that and understand that the new generations coming through are different, and you've got to just sort of work with that. So really, people, And then finally, I think the development of people. We've really been big believers in really developing the skill sets of all people within the organisation. So if we can add something that helps them in their life as well in our business, that's when it's really worthwhile.
Mm. It sounds like you put a lot of investment in staff. I mean, after you look at this business longevity, is that where you sort of see the key to your future, or where do you see, your growth and near-term success?
Our business will just continue to grow. We have plans in place for the next 3 years, but as John just said, I think watching these younger people come through the business, we need to make sure that we've created the environment for them to continue to grow in the business. So how quick will it grow? Will we buy businesses? I'm not really sure at the moment, but it's just inevitable. It's just going to continue to happen.
Okay. And before we finish today, is there anything else that you'd like to add or address?
I think there's obviously... Look, I think it's fantastic we've been able to be in business for as long as we have. There's not many businesses. When we had to say a few words recently at the client function, you start Googling how many businesses have been around for 70 years, and there's not many. I suppose I also Googled how many people have got to 95 years of age, which my father is, and there's not many of them either. But I think that it's actually that we've been able to reinvent ourselves over the years as we've grown. Sure, we've gone into lots of other business ventures that we're still involved in, but the foundation of our business is painting. We've grown up in it. We believe in it. So it's just a critical component.
I also think we've been lucky to be able to work in an family environment. I think whilst we always have our moments, but at the end of the day, you continue to work together for the better outcome of everybody. I know the old man said to us many, many years ago, one of the great things about working for him is you can stuff something up and still have a job. So that's something that sort of we do hold true. And also, I think, seeing the business evolve and seeing the people evolve in the business as well. That's what's great, and that's what's putting us in a great position now.
If you think about disruptors, we haven't actually worked out what will be the machine that'll actually put paint onto surfaces, because obviously I'm not sure whether the Uber is going to come into the painting industry, but we've got to be ready to change quickly too, because obviously a lot of industries are really changing. And we won't be in business another 70 years unless we really start to think about how industries can change. And in today's environment, could change quickly.
It's interesting. We took a group of executives over to Germany and London a few months ago to see how they do it over there. And you could go and it's as though the same person set up the business over in Germany and London and back here in Australia, because we all do things exactly the same. So it's one that I think will be slow to change, but I hope it's not, but I think it's very much people, process, business.
Excellent. So, well, gentlemen, thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you.
This has been a production of the Australian Business Executive, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with the Australian Business Executive, including our magazines, podcasts and videos, by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.